5 suspects were applying for bail in the Piet Retief Magistrates Court in Mpumalanga on Tuesday in connection with the killing of 2 men on a farm earlier this month. Now, the case has caused public outcry in the area. The 2 slain brothers were part of a group of farm dwellers who went to seek employment as they were seasonal workers. Similarly, the rise in farm workers being attacked and murdered in the country has increased. The relationship between commercial farmers and farm workers in South Africa has been complex and layered, if you want to put it that way, since the origins. Let's unpack this now. I'm joined by Vuka Chonco. He is with the trade union FAO, the Deputy General Secretary there. And we're also joined by Ace van der Westhuizen. He is the Chairperson of the Rural Safety at Agri SA. Gentlemen, my thanks to you both for talking to me here at Newsroom Africa, a very important conversation we are going to have. I want to start with you, Mr. van der Westhuizen. You are responsible for the rural safety element within the organization Agri SA. Talk to us about the rural safety strategy. Who does it protect exactly?
Yeah, I just want to emphasize that Agri SA's sees rural safety is not only our farmers. I want to clear that right at the start. We see the strategy is applicable to our rural towns, our rural farms, or the farms in the rural areas, and then also to the farm workers and any other person that's living on farms. So I just want to say that straight out that Agri SA sees the strategy as all-inclusive. What the strategy also tells us is that the farmers and the workers are part and parcel of the strategy. The one cannot go with the other, without the other one. And if you look at the strategy itself, it specifically emphasizes the role that the farming community, and again, the farming community includes everybody on the farms, what they play in the strategy.
Okay, so before I go to Mr. Chonco, I just perhaps should get your thoughts on what happened in Piet Retief. We now have 5 suspects who are in the dock for their alleged involvement in the murder of 2 farm workers, or should we say farm dwellers, who were looking for work at the Pampun farm there.
Yes, our statement is that remember, Agri SA is on the national level, and we have 9 affiliations, in other words, 1 in each province. And the Mpumalanga Agri has already given out a media statement, which Agri SA fully supports. And they are on the ground, they know what has happened there, they put it in the media statement, and we will now await further details, because as you said now right at the beginning, alleged. So we are waiting for the courts to go ahead with its procedures. We are waiting for the investigation by SAPS, and then we will make an official statement as soon as we have all the facts.
Okay, so just highlight for us, very, very important, what the statement by Agri SA is around that specific incident in Piet Retief, and I suppose the other important element is your message, because the situation there is quite tense.
Yes, no, I agree with you on that. And also, again, what has happened with that unrest that's currently happening there, we also condemn that. Agri SA condemns any killing, and we support the investigation. All we ask is that it must be fair to everybody. And again, when I'm saying everybody, we mean all inclusive. So the investigation is very important for us, and it must take it must go along normal procedures and normal lines. Then we will see what comes out of that one.
Yeah. Are you aware at all whether the suspects who are in court belong under the fold of Agri SA?
No, I'm not 100% sure of that one.
Okay, all right. Let's bring into the conversation then Mr. Vuka Chonco from FAO. Mr. Chonco, firstly, let's get your reaction to the situation that is unfolding in Piet Retief around the murders of these two farm dwellers.
Thank you, Xoli. Firstly, as FAO, we want to forward our condolences to families who suffered as a result of this brutal killing. Secondly, we want to be on record that FAO does not condone any form of violence, especially this type of violence that is not applicable in workplaces. So that's what we want to raise as an immediate reaction, that we condemn any type of killing in the farming community. But then again, as FAO, we do support that there should be a legal process that will result into those who are responsible for this killing, for them to be severely punished as a result of killing innocent people who are honestly looking for jobs, more so that the country is faced with the high level of unemployment. And you will know the agricultural sector is one of the sectors that the larger part of its work by interpretation of employers, though that is still under dispute.
Mr. Chonco, are you still there?
Seasonal. So if they are seasonal, it will then mean time and again you will have employees who will be employed. After some time they are laid off, and after some time there will be re-employment of certain pool of workers. So it should not be unusual to have workers approaching farms and looking for employment. In such incident, it becomes extreme then when you realize that even when workers are looking for jobs, they still find themselves, or should I say community members, if they're looking for a job, they still find themselves being at risk to die. And in this instance, they died. So it's highly, extremely uncalled for.
In your considered view, we know that right now, it's all allegations. Yes, there are suspects in custody, but no person has been convicted for these two murders. But just your sense as to why, if indeed what is being narrated by those who were with these two people that were murdered, why would there be that kind of reaction from the people who own that farm?
Look, if I were to answer that question, it's one part that will be giving you a preemptive, reaction. But it's another that I will obviously be responding on behalf of people who are said to have took initiative to beat and even, to find themselves having been arrested for the death of these two brothers. But I must say that the incident broadly in the farming community of workers who suffer as a result of the treatment of employers, it's not new. It is not just, it's just that we're in the media now discussing because people have died. It does not just start there. It starts in many types of treatment, exploitation of farm workers, the evictions, casualization, and various types, even occupational health and safety in these farms are not adhered to. And these conflicts are growing towards where you find that this treatment will result into unfair dismissal, will result into, some being beaten, and in some instances, some being killed as well. I'm not saying this is the incident, but flowing from what, the interviews were followed, in particular the brother of those who were killed, saying that they were there looking for employment, and then the employer responded to say there's no employment. Then they peacefully left. But when they realized that indeed not all of them were there and had to go back to find that what happened to someone who was left behind. They found that this person is kept for no reasons that they were given, and if they wanted him to be released, then of course the conflict began. Why then there was a killing? We don't know why, and we obviously dispute the fact that if there's a conflict, it should result into the death of community members who are looking for employment.
Very briefly for me, you heard Mr. van der Westhuizen saying that the rural safety strategy is all-inclusive. That means it protects both the farmer and his employee. Do you find that that is the case in practice?
There's a difference between what is on paper and also what happens practically in workplaces. These are discussions that we do have in strategic meetings with senior leaders in these type of sectors, where we say to them, whatever happens, whatever you craft as a policy that should be applicable in workplaces, you should also cascade that into practicality in local management, where there will then be a complete realization of safety. So in our case, it's not of course, it's not all farmers, I must say. In some parts of farms, there are, of course, safety followed, but in others, it's not the case. So here, we are not only also faced with a safety strategy, we are also faced with totally a broader transformation in the farming community, which is a broader subject, I must say, but leaving that out in these types of problems, we are most likely to continue to realize the continuous killing, the continuous conflict between farmers and farm workers, which is very important that parties must engage and discuss to find ways of practically resolving it, as opposed to having well-crafted documents that in some parts of the farming community, those documents are not practically realized.
Mr. van der Westhuizen, let's come to you. Before I ask you to respond to the generalized view that's just been given by Mr. Chonco, to say the treatment of farm workers by their bosses has always been deplorable, let me be fair to you and ask the question about why you think that that would have been the reaction of whoever owns that Pampoen farm. Yes, we're speaking under sensitive matters. No one is found guilty of any crime at this point, but the fact of the matter is that one of the affidavits in court states that one of the accused states that, yes, he did fire 2 gunshots and he cannot remember what happened thereafter. Why would this be the kind of reaction?
I need to respond on what Vuka has stated now by generalizing. And it's very dangerous just to generalize all farmers and say there are many incidents on farms, and maybe now also by implication means that this is what has happened now in Mpumalanga. Agri SA have stated in open forums, many open forums, that we stated and says, bring us the names, bring us the incidents, tell us where they reported this to police, and we will look at it and we will definitely act if they are part of our members. So I want to state that clearly, that we are not supporting any incidences against any employers or employees that of this nature. I really want to make that to make that clear. Right. And secondly, if we look at the Mpumalanga incident, we've all seen some of the video clips. We have seen some of the social media response on WhatsApp. I cannot envisage what that person, the owner of that farm, when he saw what was happening, if it was right or wrong what he was thinking. And that is why I'm saying is let the investigation follow due process, and we will make sure that we will give a proper media statement after this has happened. Yeah. And also, I just want to take us back now to that generalization. some of the cases that was reported that says it was farm owners that assaulted employees, farm workers. It was already proven that some of those cases were not the case. So that is why we at Agri SA first want to make sure what are the real facts, and then we will respond on that.
Yeah. So generally though, Mr. van der Westhuizen, is there a sense of panic among farm owners as a result of farm killings that do happen in this country? Is there generalized panic from the point of view of farm owners that when they see people coming into their farm, they immediately assume that it's a farm invasion or it could be an attack?
No, I don't think that the farmers, we are in any panic mode. We are cautious. We have seen what has happened. And no, we're definitely not in a panic mode. No. And what we must also be careful is not just to imply that farmers are all white. Look at the farmer that was murdered in the KZN, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was in KZN. It was a black farm owner. Why was that not such a war around that one? He's also a farmer. And we don't want to make this a racial issue. We are farmers. Whether we're black or colored or white, we are farmers. And our farm workers are part of our farming community. And in any business, if you don't look after your workers, you're not going to make it. And that same implies to our farms. I need to stress another point. Just look at what happens if a farm owner is murdered. The farm comes to a stop. The workers do not get paid for a specific period. Farms get sold because the people say, no, they're not going to farm anymore. So we must really look at the broader picture. But where I do agree with Vuka, 100%, is where he said we mustn't just put plans on paper. And Agri SA has been quoted in so many statements there that we said, let's operationalize this strategy. Put the techie on the tar road and do what is stated inside the strategy. And maybe just because we are on an open forum, we also want to ask people, don't start developing new plans, parallel structures being created. We are all South Africans, irrespective of who or what you are. Let's stand together and make this work. Because if the farming community is not successful, your rural towns is not going to make it, and you can see it already in some of our areas. And if the rural towns do not make it, all the people, many people, is already happening, are moving into the bigger towns. So I think we must start thinking as South Africans and address this as South Africans, and irrespective of who the criminals are. They must get behind bars, and that we can move forward in our country.
Mr. Chonco, do you accept that in the farms, it's not just white farm owners that own these farms, it's also black farmers who at times come under attack, as Mr. van der Westhuizen points out? Mr. Chonco, are you still with us?
Yes, I'm still with you. I was saying, yes, I understand that the incident of criminality is not taking place between, or should I say, by only white people to black people. There are black people who are attacked as well, but who are farm owners as well. So we do have those incidents. But then again, Xoli, I need to be open to you that that should not be, because if we disregard this process that I mentioned, we are most likely to lose it. For example, my colleague just spoke of, racial grounds, and that should not be the focus. Of course, any criminal element should not be allowed in farms, either by employers or by employees. And I said that initially. Now, when we speak of transformation in the sector, we are talking about, there's no way you can disregard people who are deprived of opportunities that are not there. The very same incident that is happening now is an incident where people lost their life. I'm not talking about the death, but the fact that these people were there to look for employment. It gives a clear indication that in terms of transformation in this sector, we have not gone as far as making sure that we address employment, which is something that has been an issue for many years in this sector. So transformation will obviously have to be followed, and by way of bringing all those who were previously disadvantaged, who form part of the designated group by legislation, and that's a legislative framework.
Yeah.
And in the process of doing that, there is no way you can disregard the fact that those who are part of the designated group are black people. And when you do that, you don't also do that in workplaces, but you also do that in the entire value chain in the agricultural sector, where we need to realize.
Mr. Chonco, are you still there?
Black owners, or should I say farm owners who are now independent. So it's a transformation process. So the moment
All right, Mr. Chonco, your line is quite bad, and that's just very sad. Let me come to you, Mr. van der Westhuizen. Two quick questions. Firstly, the issue of exploitation. Vuka did raise it, Vuka Chonco, moments ago, and he says that it's still there. How widespread is it?
To answer you on that one, again, I come back to my earlier statement. Exploitation. People make a lot of statements saying a farmer exploited the members in an area or in a province. And I come back to my earlier statement. Just give us those incidents and those names, and then we can come back and say, listen, we're not going to sweep anything under the carpet. These are the elements. We have addressed it. This must happen. And again, investigations must follow due process, and we will for sure act on those things. Again, I do not have stats that says the following people have been exploited, so many people in these areas, and so forth. Agri SA is not a secret organization. We are open. We know that we all make mistakes, and we are prepared to admit it and to address it with regards to the specific question that you have asked.
Yeah, there's another specific question I want to ask you, and it is from a viewer who's actually watching this conversation as we speak. His name is Isaac Mangena, and he says, your farmer guest makes it sound as if it's only black suspects who murder white farmers. Evidence, this is him saying this, evidence and cases in Limpopo, Mokopong, he's being specific, and elsewhere shows white competitors and white, or should I say farmers' wives, kill them, yet a suspect is always black. How would you respond to that?
Yeah, in my comments during this interview, I refer to criminals. Criminals are white, black, colored. I almost mentioned some countries also, but we are all of us, all groups. I did not say black, and by mentioning something and just make it because what I've stated, you just couple a color to that. It's wrong.
Yeah.
You have seen on some of the cases where people have been murdered on farms, there was whites behind it or they were involved in it. So look at the one that has happened in the Northern Cape. You understand? So I don't connect any specific cultural group or ethnicity or whatever to crime. Crime, when somebody bleeds, and I always tell that to the people when they stand around fires talking, Braaivleisvuur and talking about these things. I say, when you bleed, your blood is red. South Africans, all of them, their blood are red. So I'm definitely not coupling ethnicity to crime. Crime is an enemy of all of the citizens of South Africa.
Just very quickly for me then,
yes.
do you find that it is either something that has always been there, or it is a growing trend, what Isaac Mangena is referring to here when he says it's at times white competitors, as in a white farmer who is in competition with a fellow white farmer who actually attacks the other, and in some instances it's the wives that are involved in the killing of their husbands?
It's the?
It's the wives.
Yes, we had one incident. I cannot mention the specific place now where a wife was involved. Yes, that is true. That has happened in some places, but because the court cases have not yet been concluded, for sure. That is also not just on farms. It's a normal business. I mean, just look at on the news how many people have murdered of husbands or wives or boyfriends or girlfriends has murdered well-known people in our communities.
Okay.
But there's one thing that I just need to mention and agree with Vuka also what he has stated earlier. We always look at crime and then we make solutions or we think we have solutions, and it's like putting a plaster over a wound. We don't address the causes why it is happening. And Agri SA has stated again on several platforms, we mustn't just focus on crime. Why is it happening?
Yeah.
And that is one of our main concerns, that our socio-economic and it's not in place. And that is why some of these incidents do happen, because we do not have cohesion, and everybody's doing their own thing in silos, and we are not cooperating and talking with one another. And I think that is one of our major problems.
All right. Mr. Chonco, if you're still with us, your last comments in particular around what Mr. van der Westhuizen is referring to, and that is that at the core of this is the socio-economic conditions in our country, the inequalities that exist, that are the reason why there are these situations that exist in our farming communities.
Yes, they are part of the reasons. And the transformation that I'm talking about of inequalities and the treatment that is happening there is, of course, not by way of automatic. It was made for it to be. That is why we always argue that the salary scale, the conditions under which farm workers find themselves into, or the entire sector, as it were, it has not transformed. So inequalities are part of the main of our argument to say we need to ensure that in the farming sector there has to be a transformation where the conditions, the salaries, the benefit, including even the intervention of government, because when you transform, you don't only wait until people die and then you invite police to go and investigate and it ends there.
On the issue of salaries, let me interrupt you very quickly. On the issue of salaries, do you find that farm owners are complying with the national minimum wage when they pay their workers?
Yeah, sorry, what's the question?
The national minimum wage. Are farm owners complying with that?
Some, but some of them do not. As we speak, we are having discussion with one of the farms in Limpopo, where the employer is not conforming to the national minimum wage. Let alone that we are even arguing against that rate against the government, as it were, because you cannot formulate a legislation that is designed to alleviate poverty, yet the legislation in itself does not make any significance in the salaries of those workers, designed that they live outside poverty. So that's also an argument. So yes, I agree that there are employers who are following that provision, but there are employers who are also not doing that, and we have begun engaging them. Some of the cases are even in court for that matter, because there is no compliance. Hence I was pushing for this point, Xoli, to say it's not only us who should be found arguing against the employers in workplaces in terms of compliance. We want the government also to be part of this by deploying.
Oh, all right. Vuka Chonco, that line, just terrible, keeps breaking all the time. But let's leave it there. Vuka Chonco is with the Union FAU and Ace van der Westhuizen. He is the Chairperson of Rural Safety at Agri SA. Thank you very much for your time, gentlemen. Lots of issues to discuss around here, and time always the enemy, unfortunately. Well.